Welcome to the Spotlight Series. I'm your host, Scott Nerney, and the sit in. If you're interested in coming on to the Spotlight Series and sitting down, having a chat with us, local business, an event, nonprofit, drop us a line at the Wave. You can get all our information and subscribe to the videos. We'd love to have you. Just like tonight, Tony Estrella from the Gamm Theater. Welcome back to our Spotlight Series.
Thanks for having me back.
For those who might not know you, which is hard to do, but if there are a few, give us a little rundown of what you do at the Gamm Theater.
Yeah, I'm the artistic director of the Gamm, and we've been here in Warwick for, it's hard to tell. It's like 4 years now, but with COVID, time collapses in a bizarre way. So every time I try to recall, I don't quite get it. But it's actually my 20th season as artistic director at the Gamm. And,
happy anniversary!
Thank you very much. Starting way back in 2000, our first season started in 2003, and when we were in Pawtucket. But like I said, we've been here in Warwick for 4 years, and as artistic director, I'm just kind of charged with making sure everything gets done, picking the plays, producing the plays, directing and acting in the plays oftentimes, and making sure the collaborations go well, and everything works. And when the audience shows up on time, the play's ready to go.
All right, and that's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
So you're the guy.
Yes, chief cook and bottle washer.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit. You're finishing up your current season. Mm-hmm. So I just saw The Children this past week.
Yeah.
Fantastic play.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely loved it. I was a little thrown with the six-legged cow on the cover.
Yeah.
But I understood what was happening there.
It makes sense when you get into the play. Yeah, it's an intriguing image, hopefully, that you go, what's that all about? You find out when you get there. Yeah, fantastic play. It's been a great season. Yeah.
There's still a little bit more left, but we wanted to kind of talk about next season.
Sure.
So one of the questions that I know we always have is, how do you really pick what plays to do?
Well, as I often, my answer to this question is often the same, because it's the simplest and truest answer, which is it's the biggest part of my job, meaning it's the thing across 365 days that the most hours go into of any single task I have to do. As you pointed out, I have a lot of things I have to do, and I'm kind of charged with, and you wear a lot of hats in the theater, of course. So, but that hat is the biggest hat, and the most important hat, because that's how we kind of, sales are probably not the right term, but how we advance our mission, right, is through the plays. It's the main thing we do. It's our calling card, the 5-play main stage season, plus, of course, the holiday show that we do. But picking those plays is the most important work. So it runs the gamut of lots of things, right? It's the easiest part of it is having a lot of plays you want to do, right? There's a massive list of plays that I would love to do. But then you start to think of, well, why now is a big question. What's a good mix of plays, and how do they speak to each other over the course of the year? So variety comes into it, of course, because you want to kind of give the audience, especially, we really do it for subscribers. Subscribers allow us to do so much of what we do. So if you're out there watching this, think about buying a subscription, because what you get for that is not only the 5 plays, and you get the best seats and the cheapest prices, but you also get a chance over the course of the year to feel how the plays talk to each other as well. So that's a big part of it. I want to think about how, like chapters in the novel, so to speak. I often, we were just listening to Jethro Tull earlier here on the over the PA, and we were chatting about that. Jethro Tull was big on the concept album, right? It was a big 70s thing, which had that same thing. And I often think of our work as a concept album, right? Which is that each song is a bit in the story, even though it's a completely separate song and it can take you in a completely separate place, but that somehow they're speaking to each other. So getting that right is really important. And then, of course, there's the practical issues, right, which are size of cast, size of play, what's it going to cost to put on, how, so what do we have the resources to do it? Do we have everything that we need to be able to do it? And then can we get the rights to it? Are there rights available to it? So some of the plays in next year, that hasn't always been the case. You have to sometimes wait a year after in order to get them, because you have to have permission to do them, and you got to sign on the dotted line and all of that. So it's a very intricate process.
Tony, let's talk about the first 2 plays on your list. I'm going to have to refer to my notes because I don't know them as well as you do.
Yeah.
Top Dog, Underdog, and Hangman.
Yeah, both incredible plays, both very recent Broadway plays, actually. Top Dog, Underdog is a play that's 20 years old now. There's a couple plays that are just at that 20-year mark. And Doubt also, which is at the end of the season. And that, I was really interested in looking at those plays 20 years on, because that means they survived a generation. And if you've survived a generation, then they're kind of on their way to classic. You could kind of say they're going to be around. They're still worth doing. They speak to somehow not only the moment they were written, but they're speaking to our moment now in a really profound way. And Top Dog just came off Broadway, actually, and it had never been on Broadway. It has had a great life over the last 20 years, but it had never had a Broadway production. In fact, as we're taping this, the Tony Award nominations came out today, and it got quite a few of them, and well-deserved. It's an amazing play by Susan Laurie Parks, one of our great American playwrights. And it's essentially a play about brothers and American family, the great, what we owe to history, and where does that lead us in the future. Two brothers who are named Lincoln and Booth, both black men, one of whom works in a kind of carnival gallery where he's Abe Lincoln by day and gets shot as part of the, there's like a reenactment of the assassinations as part of this shooting gallery at this kind of carnival. So it's loaded with symbol, it's loaded with a kind of, but it's essentially about brothers. We did a play a couple of years ago called True West by Sam Shepard, which was another great American play about brothers, and it's a very, Susan Laurie's play really draws on that and kind of attacks a very domestic relationship, but blows it up into kind of the American mythos and American history. And Hangman is on the other side of the pond. We go over to England, written by Irish playwright Martin McDonagh, who just was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards for his great film Banshees of Inisherin. Some of people might have seen with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. And McDonagh's we're big fans of McDonagh at the Gamm. We've done many, many of his plays. He's one of my very favorite, if not my favorite, contemporary playwright. And he wrote Pillowman, Beauty Queen of Lebanon, Lieutenant of Inishmore. His plays are incredibly funny, incredibly dark, and some of the most thrilling things you can see on stage. And Hangman is right in that line. It's essentially a play about justice and what is justice, and can we ever be certain about justice? As we look over the course of the season, I would say the thing that kind of connects all of the plays I was saying earlier about the chapters in a novel, and I think what connects a lot of the plays we're doing is this idea of certainty in an uncertain world, and our kind of propensity to create fictions about ourselves that can order our lives in a way to make sense of them, because without it we just we're afraid of the complexity, right? We're afraid of kind of being uncertain, and we need to kind of find the steady ground underneath our feet. Of course, as a play I mentioned we'll get to in a minute, Doubt, that's in the title of it, right? That ultimately that everything in order to kind of suppress doubt, we create certainty even if it's not true. And Hangman is an incredibly funny play that all you need to know is the day they abolish hanging in the 1960s, when they abolished hanging in England as a means of execution. That's when it went off the books, and it's about the second best hangman in England, which right off the bat, as soon as you hear second best, it makes me laugh out loud.
Yeah,
you know something's going on.
And he's out of a job now.
And he's out of a job, but he runs a pub in the north, and it all takes place, most of it, 90% of the play takes place in a pub, in his pub. And this case comes back to haunt him. Another theme that runs through the season is this idea of history catching up with us, this case that happened a few years earlier, where perhaps the wrong man was hanged, plays a big part in the mystery of the piece.
Nice.
Yeah.
And when you put a play out to say that we're going, Gamm's going to do blank,
yeah,
and you put the call out for actors,
yeah,
are you really having to really stay up late at night thinking, oh, I really want this person, but I want this one? And
sure, yeah, we have auditions coming up, and if you're out there and you're an actor and you want to audition for this weekend, May 6th and 8th, I don't know when this is running, it may be too late, but we're having our general audition, which we bring in for 2 full days, 8-hour days of actors coming in from all over the place. And of course we have actors we've worked with in the past, and so it's then the agonizing decisions have to get made. Sometimes off the bat, you say, we're doing that play, that person's going to play that, and you go with that. And other times you say, well, we know we've got a great deep pool, and let's see what comes in. You always want to be open to surprise too, right? Rather than having everything necessarily. Sometimes you do that out of safety, that thing I was talking about. We don't want to be doubtful, so we need certainty. So you're going to do that, and you're going to do that. And then somebody comes in and teaches you something about the play you didn't know, which is a wonderful thing that can often happen at auditions.
Okay. And a play that is very popular, it's been around through different stages, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf
Yeah.
is your third play of the season.
Yeah, that's survived more than in one generation. We're on about 4 generations now.
Yeah.
You know, this play was originally done in the 1960s. We actually did a production of it when we were. This is now. I think we were still Alias Stage, and I was actually in it a generation ago, playing the younger character, the younger male character in it. I wouldn't be able to play him now, Nick. And of course, you know, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is one of the best American plays ever written. It's there's no question. It's whenever someone talks about their top 5, it's right there with sometimes first, along with Streetcar and Death of a Salesman. Right? It's like and maybe Long Day's Journey into Night as the great American plays. And it's another piece about self-deception and self-delusion and about America on a fundamental level. People forget that because it seems like this domestic tragic comedy, that the lead characters' names are George and Martha for a reason, right? And it's set in New Carthage, right? So we know why Albie's giving us this domestic play, he's also making a comment about something fundamental about who we are as Americans. And it's wickedly funny. It's 2 intermissions. They used to do plays like that, you know, 3 acts, 2 intermissions. We don't do plays like that. But it's really important in this one because it basically takes place in real time. You know, it starts a little bit after 2 o'clock in the morning and ends up at dawn, you know, and you go through this thing with them in real time. And by the end of it, you are as exhilarated and as exhausted as they are. And it's, I think, wrung dry in a wonderful, wonderful way.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about for a minute was your sets.
Yeah.
Children had a big set.
Yeah.
It doesn't move. There's no, taking things on and off.
Yeah,
Everything's done in one room.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's just nothing on the stage or next to nothing.
Yeah, sure.
And I can visualize everything and everything works.
Yeah.
And I wanted to commend you guys for that.
Yeah.
I know if I watched the play someplace else in a massive place where they could have sets and curtains going across and moving things, it could be different, but it really does work.
Theater design and our set for the children is designed by Jess Hill-Kidd, who's also our production director, and she's a genius. And she just is able to, and all of our designers are able to kind of fit the play with what it needs. Sometimes you need a lot of moving parts. Hangman's going to need some moving parts, and sometimes you just have to create that perfect room. You know, and Children is a one room. It's a cottage, right?
Yeah.
And you've got this one room, and yet so much happens on it, and it's as if the set is transforming itself. It's also brilliantly lit by David Roy, where you watch it go from, it's this beautiful thing over the course of the 90 minutes of the play. You're kind of at it's late in the afternoon, and so the sun is setting, and you get that great sunlight kind of carving through the windows, and then because they have no electricity, they have to put the candles on, and you get this wonderful middle section that's candlelit, and then bang, in the last act of the play, the power comes on, and
which scared most of the audience. The lights came on,
and so you get all of a sudden you get these 3 very distinct looks in watching in this passage of time, and so there's actually a lot visually happening, even though it's very subtle, right? And that's what that play needs. It's a perfect set. We did that. I think that these last 3 plays have had these kind of beautiful postage stamp sets, Faith Healer, and then Bad Jews, and then this one, and that have just really kind of brought the audience to it, rather than some designs come at the audience in a much more aggressive way.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about your theater. Always tries to dabble a little Shakespeare now and then. So Twelfth Night.
Right. Twelfth Night is I think Shakespeare's greatest comedy. And that means the greatest comedy ever written, of course. It's my favorite of his comedies, and that's saying something. It's a play that I've worked on actually several times in my life. We actually did this play this is the first play we've ever repeated that wasn't a holiday play. Because, we did this now about close to, it was in the first few seasons that we were going. So it was about 17 or 18 years ago now. So it's nice to revisit this particular play, which thematically, of course, is a lot about, history in a sense, and it's about a shipwrecked twins that get separated, and one twin thinks the other's dead and is in search of kind of protect herself, rediscovers her brother, and so it's very, very moving. But it's also essentially about how that love conquers grief. You know, you have two women in the play who are in deep grief for their brothers who have passed, and then we watch this kind of thaw happen, and that love that reanimates our lives. And also, it's also a play about that kind of that idea that we talked about thematically about certainty. There's a character in the play called Malvolio who is a very, you could tell by his name, is a very prudish kind of and judgmental character who thinks that society ought to be a certain way and tries to kind of make it conform to that, and then is upended because of love. He has his own kind of issues with that, and then when his real true self is revealed, it's something very different. The complexity kind of upends him. Twelfth Night is a tradition in England where, used to be anyway, they don't do it quite so much anymore, but that Twelfth Night celebration around Christmas. And one of the things that characterizes it was the servants would become the masters would become the servants. And it was one day where everything was upended. And so again, giving lie to that kind of thing, that we are much more complicated than we think, and then we have to order ourselves in order to get through. And then this is one day of complete disorder, right? I think it's the best play he ever wrote about love. And that includes Romeo and Juliet. It's the most complex play he ever wrote about love, and it's so while it's incredibly funny, it's also moving you at the same time.
So you're saying my English teacher in 9th grade should have forced me to remember lines from this instead of Romeo and Juliet?
Absolutely. If music be the food of love, play on, right? There's a lot of them. You'll actually recognize a lot of them, though. You memorize them by osmosis.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to ask is, besides, you kind of mentioned you couldn't play the younger character anymore.
Yeah.
But how do you separate wanting to be in the play and not? Like, do you see some parts you're like, oh, I could really do that? Or do you jump in and think, well, we don't have the perfect person? Or like, how do you decide that?
Yeah, it's hard. You know, when you have a big appetite, most actors do, right? We think we can. You know, Bottom, who I played, was privileged to play last season in our previous season, A Midsummer Night's Dream, is, you know, the world's greatest ham actor, right? He's a community actor, and he says he wants to play all the parts, right? He says, let me play the lion too, right? And every part that they hand out at the beginning, he gets the lead, but then he wants to play everybody. And I think there's that little kind of demon in all of us, right? But then you run up against your own, you know, we've got to be cognizant of our own limitations, and then you know, fight to expand them. Of course, that's every artist should be like have an appetite and ambition, but at the same time, you know, you want to fit the right actor for the right role too. You know, they say 90% of great direction is casting, and I think that's probably pretty true. You know, you get the right actor for it, your job as a director is far easier.
Okay. Now, you mentioned a lot about Doubt. If you want to just give a quick overview of what it is. Yeah,
John Patrick Shanley's play. It won every award in the world 20 years ago when it came out. It won a Tony Award. I probably think I won a Pulitzer Prize. Won everything. And it was made into a very famous film with Meryl Streep and Viola Davis. It was one of Viola's, who's, you know, Rhode Island's own Viola Davis, one of her not her first film role. She had many, but I think she won the Academy Award for that.
She's welcome back to try out for this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
She doesn't have to try out. If she wants to do anything, she can just knock on the door.
So
and
Viola, you have it here. A personal invitation from me and Tony.
Absolutely.
You're welcome back to the Gamm. Love to have you.
Yeah, I mean, well, she's one of the great actors in the world, right? So, so it had this, and it had Philip Seymour Hoffman and Amy Adams as well. So it was an amazing cast of just brilliant actors, because it's a brilliant script, and brilliant actors are attracted to brilliant writing. And Shanley wrote this incredible play about Mother Superior of a convent school who comes to believe very quickly that a student has been had an inappropriate a priest has had an inappropriate relationship with a young student at the school, and she's seeking justice for that. She's seeking to prove it, and the title of the play is very evident in that her certainty is not quite all of it seems, and we in the audience are constantly navigating what we think may have happened with what we understand or know. So it's a very, very moving play about the complexity of doubt and then the fight between doubt and certainty, and that is a very difficult one. Even when you know, what we want to believe is, and what is easy for us to believe is not always the whole story, or is it? So
okay.
Yeah.
And before we talk about your last play, for still upcoming for this year and into next year as well, as part of benefits as a subscriber, you get a discounts on.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, you do other things besides just put on these plays. You do movie nights.
Yeah.
You do some cabaret. There's some work that was done outside to kind of bring some more of that to light. So give us a little heads up on that.
Yeah, well, we're always we're over there on Jefferson Boulevard, and we're probably the only thing happening over there at night, other than a couple of restaurants, right? And so we really want to, kind of get people over there all the time, get used to coming to the building. So when we're not doing plays, and if plays for some reason aren't your thing, we've had a series that we just started this year, free movie nights, right? There's bringing in National Theater Live broadcasts as well. So if you want to come and see, for instance, coming up, if you want to see Ian McKellen play King Lear, speaking of Shakespeare, seeing one of the greatest Shakespearean actors in the world play with the best role, come and check that out. And the free movie nights are great because you can come on in. We've got a projection screen, etc. It's like going to the showcase. The seats aren't, those bucket seats where you could fall asleep for the rest of your life in. The seats are good though. But popcorn and concession and the whole thing. And we just really want to get people in there. And oftentimes what we try to do is the movies might have a connection to, I was just talking to John today, who puts this all together, who I work with, and he's great, and he curates the movies, and he goes, oh, I found a movie for the McDonough slot next year, right? So we were talking about what are we going to do when Hangman is playing, or to get people kind of, and he said In Bruges, of course, which is a Martin McDonough film with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, who are both in Banshees of Inisherin. So sometimes the movies have a connection to what we're doing on stage. So we hope to encourage people who come and who've never been there before and come in and they go see a movie and they have a good time and say, hey, maybe I should come and check out the live version of this too, right? So there's movie nights. Yes, we try to get our lobby. We try to get community groups into the lobby. Sometimes we've had a whole concert event series this year as well. So there's all sorts of stuff going on with, as you mentioned, a complete rework of the facade of the building and the courtyard area, just to make it as kind of inviting as possible for the Warwick and larger community. So please come on down and check us out.
And lastly, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about Wonderful Life.
Yeah. It's a Wonderful Life. It's going to be I think the 5th time, 4 times live and 1 time on the radio we did it. And we'll be bringing that back for a couple of weeks around the holiday. I think 17 or 18 performances. We're just working on the calendar. And so if you've never seen it before, or if you have seen it before, please come on back. It's a great holiday tradition. It's my, along with Christmas Carol, it's like the American Christmas Carol. So it'll be happening live, and it's a radio version of the play. So it's done with about 6 or 7 actors and Foley and the sound cue. So you get to watch a kind of radio version and watch actors transform in front of you with all of these sound effects that kind of bring the entire kind of community of Bedford Falls to life.
Okay. And people can get more information, tell them how to contact you?
Yeah, of course, gammtheater.org is probably the easiest way, and that's theater with an R-E, but our phone number is 723-4266. You can call our box office anytime. Subscriptions are on sale now, and again, I just want to reiterate that subscriptions are the best way to see it because you get the whole kit and caboodle, and it's a way to get the cheapest tickets, the best seats, and to also to take a chance on something you might go, hey, wait a minute, I definitely want to see that one. I definitely want to see that one. And that's often plays that we know. Like, I want to see Virginia Woolf because I love it, or I want to see Twelfth Night because I'm a big Shakespeare fan. But I don't know. I've never heard of Hangman or Top Dog Underdog. Trust us to put it all together for you, and that you might see something that just really opens you up to something you might not have thought was for you, but I think will. So buy a subscription.
I absolutely have to agree. There's plays I saw this year that if they were on my TV, I would have just skipped by them.
Yeah.
If I was going by the Gamm and there was someone out there waving to come on in, I would have said, I don't know what that is.
Right.
But yeah, it wows me each time I go.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Yeah, so, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good season.
Thank you.